is going on, YouTube? What is going on, fellow fantasy people? And as always, what is going on, the Catch fam?
Man.
Today, yes, sir. Steven's in the house. He is ready
Yes.
to shout out the Catch fam. Today, we are rolling into our top 12 fantasy wide receivers for the upcoming 2021 football season. So, of course, it is your boy John, and we have got Steven in the house. What is popping, man?
Dude, nothing much, dude. And I'm really hyped to get into this one because the running back ones, I mean, while that was interesting, this wide receiver rankings 1 through 24, it can get pretty in the weeds, especially the 12 to 24 video. There were 13 to 24 video that we're going to drop. But 1 to 12, we've got some ones that we are going to have to be debating here. I know the DK Metcalf one, not to spoil anything, that's going to be a fun one.
Well, yeah, if you've been keeping up with our mock drafts, you guys already know that I'm super high on DK Metcalf, so not really a surprise. But let's hop right into it, man. My number one receiver on the year, DeVante Adams. So, and we'll go ahead and throw it out there. Why not? Your number one receiver is Tyreek Hill. And I really think you can't go wrong with either of these guys just looking at their respective offenses. I mean, Tyreek Hill is my number two, and DeVante Adams is your number two. So we'll just go ahead and break down each player. DeVante Adams, I mean, an absolutely crazy year last year. I think really from a fantasy perspective, what's separating these two guys and why a lot of people tend to have DeVante Adams just a slimmer, higher overall, really has to do with those touchdowns last year.
He's a touchdown machine. I mean, that's all throughout his career he's been like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, don't get me wrong, Tyreek Hill is also an absolute touchdown machine as well. But nonetheless, I think that it's kind of a weird thing, right? I mean, we're looking at DeVante Adams with 18 touchdowns last year. And he tends to get, at the end of the day, some more targets as well as some more receptions. But then Tyreek Hill's kind of making up for that. I mean, 15 touchdowns last year for Tyreek Hill, but he's kind of making up for that with the receiving yards because he does so much, in between the sticks and down the field as well. So, but they're two very different receivers in the way they play, but they present they present very similar fantasy value at the same time. So just two really good receivers. I mean, what else can you really say, right? I mean, I'll let you get your 2 cents.
Yeah, I think that's a good intro. I mean, to both of those guys. I mean, but like you were saying, how they are so different. I mean, Tyreek Hill brings that absolute elite efficiency in terms of how he's getting his fantasy points. He also brings that potential that, where he could have 50 points in one game and just win you the game without any of your other players showing up, kind of like he did when he played Tampa Bay. But the thing about Tyreek Hill too is because they've kind of had some other people leave the team. I think this offense is a little bit more reliant on Tyreek Hill next season. And I think the fact that Patrick Mahomes now has a more refurbished O-line, it's going to give him a little bit more of a chance to maybe hold the ball a little bit longer, get his feet set, and launch up some more deep passes to Tyreek. Now, on the other hand, you got DeVante Adams tagged with another elite quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, thankfully coming back, because how he would have been shaped up if A-Rod wasn't still here, I don't know. I mean, Jordan Love's that's how badly his stock would have been hit. But with that said too, I mean, I think the thing with DeVante Adams is you are so reliant on those touchdowns. He is a great PPR machine. He's always going to catch it. He still can he can make people miss. He gets a lot of yards as well, but those touchdowns have always been the backbone of DeVante Adams scoring. This year, I don't know though. There's just something about me that makes me think he's still going to be a top guy, but is he going to be back-to-back number one receiver? That's really hard to do. It doesn't happen often. And they bring in Randall Cobb, A-Rod's, trusted ally. They got Robert Tonyan. They got some other guys in there in the red zone too. Maybe do we see some red zone efficiency go away for this guy? I don't know.
It's definitely possible, right? But I think the last thing to look out when you're debating these two guys is really their red zone efficiency, right? I mean, last year for DeVante Adams, 14 red zone touchdowns and 27 red zone targets. And then on the flip side with Tyreek Hill, red zone touchdowns and 19 red zone targets. But once again, Tyreek Hill does a lot more in terms of moving down the field. And I actually had this backwards, my mistake. DeVante Adams actually had more receiving yards last year than that of Tyreek Hill. So, but I think at the end of the day, they're both amazing fantasy values. You can't.
Who
I
would
mean,
you rather have? Who would you rather have? Would you take Tyreek Hill with your 6 or Devontae Adams with your 6? Like, who would you feel more comfortable reaching for a receiver first? Because that's the thing, right? Like, you can say Devontae Adams your number 1, but
I
do you take him first in that
yeah, I would.
situation?
I would.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine getting in a situation where you could somehow tag a Devontae and a Tyreek. It's
Well, it's
just like
definitely
some,
possible in I think in 8 and 10 man leagues. I think it's definitely
yeah,
possible, but you have to have that final selection of the first round.
yeah,
You have to be fortunate enough that they both fell out of the first round. Uh, and but I mean, I will say that having the combination of Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes feels more attractive to me than having the combination of Devonte Adams and
and Aaron
Aaron
Rodgers.
Rodgers. But
Yeah,
uh, nonetheless, they're both going to have absolutely fantastic fantasy seasons, and we could argue back and forth all day just because both these guys are so good. So let's move along on to we have an agreement here at the third overall selection. We both got Stefon Diggs, my fantasy steal
badass,
last
man.
year. Yeah, um, and I think he's perfectly rated where he is right at the number 3 position. And this is a guy who definitely, uh, ate in terms of receptions and yards overall. I mean, 8 touchdowns last year, which is by no means anything to sneeze at, but 168 targets, 127
Yeah,
receptions, and over 1,500 receiving yards. I mean, that's where he got the bulk of his fantasy value. And I'm not one who's thinking there's going to be a lot of regression in that offense
not
and
at
Josh
all.
Allen and with Stefon Diggs. I mean, and the thing with Stefon Diggs for me is that he's gone out and proven that he can be a number 1 receiver and not really need a whole lot of help around him and
Mhm.
still go up against the best in the league defensively and still perform. So I think he's perfectly rated right here at the 3rd receiver for the year.
Yeah, I think Stephon Diggs actually has a really good chance to maybe break into that top 2.
Sure.
Like I said, it's really hard to kind of retain that top. So if Devontae Adams or Tyreek slips and Stephon Diggs jumps in, that would not surprise me. I think you're going to see a lot of positive regression with Stephon Diggs because even though he had such a high target total last year, he seemed to be like kind of the absolute key to this offense. I don't really see that going away. And let's just say it does for, argument's sake, like it goes back a little bit, maybe some Emmanuel Sanders slips in there. He's got to have some touchdown upside. I mean, this guy did not have many touchdowns last year. And the fact that he didn't have any with all the targets he was touching, I mean, it's like you've got to see more. I need to see this guy in double digits. And I think that's something that is going to happen.
Sure.
And this guy is like a Tyreek Hill where once he touches the ball, he can make every single player in the defense miss.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, like, the thing with like Stefon Diggs overall, I mean, like I said, I mean, 15 red zone targets last year and 5 red zone touchdowns. But the thing to take in consideration, my point is that Josh Allen ate into some of those touchdowns in the
Yeah.
red zone. And then between Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, you had, just stealing,
Gross.
yeah, just stealing, touches in the red zone as well. And then, I mean, between Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders, I don't see either of them stealing a lot of those touchdowns. I
Yeah.
see them helping move the ball down the field. So I think you're certainly right, as my point that he can definitely see double digits this year.
I
And I,
would I would love to have Stefon Diggs as my wide receiver 1 this year. I mean,
sure,
I've been targeting that in mock drafts.
sure,
I've seen you take him in reach form. A few of your mock drafts, you've tried to get him, but not been able to because
yeah,
the fantasy community is at large pretty high on this guy. So
sure.
not sure how much luck you guys are going to have trying to grab him where would you say you're going to have to try to go get him in your fantasy drafts?
Well, I mean, obviously, it definitely, of course, depends on how many teams are in your league, but you're going to have to target him either in the first round or at the very beginning of the second round. I mean, those are the only places where you can go out and get him. And don't be surprised in some drafts if you see him selected before Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams. There are people out there high enough on him, but I don't feel like there's a lot of receivers people are taking in front of him outside of Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. I feel
Yeah.
like he's really a consensus for the most part number three receiver. But I will say, if anyone's being taken, ahead of Stefon Diggs, it's the guy that you've got rated fourth overall in your rankings, and that of Calvin Ridley. At least one of the candidates. Really, these next couple of guys. I mean, you could argue kind of some drafts I've seen them taken in front of Stefon Diggs, but I'm going to let you break in to your guy, Calvin Ridley, who I've got just a tad bit lower on the ratings.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley, 12th easiest schedule in terms of for wide receivers, paired up with, I think, going to be another really good offense in Atlanta, led by Matt Ryan, Arthur Smith at the helm coach. I think this is going to be a team that, again, is a good offense, definitely in the top tier in the league. But what's going to also be great for him is I think he's going to see the highest volume he's ever seen in his entire career.
Sure.
Julio obviously gone. Everybody knows that. But the thing is, too, is they don't really have much else to go to. They've got Kyle Pitts, but he's a rookie, man. And for any of you all who will watch our videos, watch our mock draft videos, I do like Kyle Pitts. I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to be great as a rookie, but they're going to be going to Calvin Ridley early and often in games. And when he did get the chance to shine as a starter without Julio, he balled out, averaging like 100 yards a game and saw way more touchdown efficiency than Julio Jones did. I mean, in large part, you could say over the past few years, Calvin Ridley's been a better fantasy asset than Julio. And I'm not trying to knock on Julio or anything. I just think the thing is that like if you can find the end zone, that's going to be a huge boon for your stock. And Calvin really can do that. I think it has less to do with Julio's inefficiency and more about, I think, Matt Ryan just he knows when he gets down there, when things get weird, he can get to him because Calvin's super slippery. There was a highlight that just came out actually, the joint practice, and Calvin Ridley just made somebody look damn foolish in practice and had the corner looking around, going in circles. He's just sitting back there, catches in the red zone for a touchdown. I mean, this guy was elite in college at route running and has just carried that over to the NFL. He's a beast.
Yeah, I mean, 7+ touchdowns in his first 3 seasons in the league. So, I mean, his best, season terms touchdowns was his rookie season. But certainly, I would, expect for actually those numbers to improve this year. And
Mm-hmm.
last year, I mean, we saw that true breakout year, over 1,300 receiving yards, 90 receptions off of 143 targets. So I would say all of those things are looking to increase this year, really with Julio out of the picture. And to your point, he has been a better fantasy asset these last 3 years in terms of uh, most people were going out and drafting Julio before him, and Calvin Ridley was kind of a later round value, right? I mean, not an extremely late round value by any means, but you could get him after selecting Julio Jones, far
Yeah.
further in drafts. So, yeah, he's certainly been more valuable, and this is really his first year where he's really being considered in that top 10 receivers, in most cases, top 5 receivers, right? So, um, I certainly think he's going to have a fantastic year overall. I've
Dude,
still got
that's not what your rankings have him at,
uh,
man.
I've got him in my
Jeez.
top 10. I mean, he's my wide receiver number 6 at the moment, which is a good pivot point to who I've got ranked number 4 in that of DK Metcalf, which is
Yeah.
definitely not what a lot of people are saying. I mean, wide receiver number 7 last year. One thing, a little bit more recently in terms of fantasy and my evaluations that's come up is I've really looked into the strength of schedule for the Seattle Seahawks from a fantasy perspective, and
Mm.
it's not pretty whatsoever. I mean, it's all like 25 or higher. DK and Tyler Lockett are looking at the 26 hardest schedule for
Jeez.
receivers. But with that being said, I've gone over this in quite a few mock drafts now. If I think there's any quarterback and any receiver who can play through a very difficult strength of schedule, I think it's Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf.
Hmm.
And regardless of how difficult the schedule is, DK is going to be targeted relentlessly, and he is going to be a threat in the red zone. Um, and it's just one of those things. Once again, it's like us with our running back rankings where I just have full faith in DK Metcalf. I have a weird gut feeling that I'm following. I've got conviction in my selection. And if he's there, I'm probably going to take him ahead of guys like Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins. But
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, it's not an easy decision. It's not like I'm going out and making that decision with extreme full faith. Like if Hopkins and Ridley are still sitting there, and even guys like Justin Jefferson, I'm still gonna wait that full 60 seconds and really think it through. But
Well,
uh,
because I've seen you in your mock drafts, you've looked at the board. Sometimes the drown coming into it prior, you're like, this is the guy I'm coming after. But you've looked at the board and you've had to stare down receivers like Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, I think they're a little bit later in the draft that you would grab them anyways. But you look down maybe who I've got, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, like those are tough guys to pick above. And you do it pretty confidently. And I
sure.
imagine a huge part of that is just watching those highlights of Russell Wilson just absolutely bomb it deep to DK. I don't
Well,
care how good your defense is. It's tough to stop that.
yeah, and I mean, really, I think the interesting thing is, let's just look at D Hop for example, right? I mean, DK Metcalf only had 100 less receiving yards, and he had four more touchdowns than DeAndre Hopkins last year.
Hmm.
When you're looking at target share, D Hop had more targets,
Yeah.
160, while DK had 129. But there's more receivers in that Seattle Seahawks team, like Tyler Lockett, who's
Yeah.
very valuable wide receiver number two, right? But I think the point is that for some people, they hear names like DeAndre Hopkins and they just assume that he should be so much higher than DK. But when you break down the stats, they're pretty neck and neck overall. And then once again, when you're looking at Calvin Ridley's stats, right around 1,300 receiving yards last year and only 7 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken, right? So once again, very, very similar numbers, and DK performed a little bit better. So, I mean, I have reasons for having them there, and I don't feel bad about it whatsoever.
No, yeah. And I mean, last year watching, DK over the stretch of the season. And, also just to say it too, I think I got DK in my sixth spot. And DK is somebody that I evaluate as every single game, he's kind of got that Tyreek Hill mentality where he can just light up the scoreboard for you
Yeah,
because there were so many games where it was just like absolute Hail Marys by Russell Wilson launching it deep to him.
sure.
I have concerns. We'll break it down in the NFC West video that we talk about later, but I think this Seahawks team is probably going to change up the tempo a little bit. Maybe Tyler Lockett's going to be more of a benefit than DK because we saw defenses kind of adjust to DK Metcalf last year, play a little bit different defenses and coverage schemes where they were like, you can beat us down low. You are not beating us over top anymore because he was that damn good where he was changing game plans.
Sure. And by mistake, Calvin Ridley had 9 touchdowns last year, but it still helps my argument either way. I just want to put that out there. But to
Yeah.
your point, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, DK finished out the season last year very poorly against the Washington football team, the LA Rams, and the San Francisco 49ers. And I mean, when he played the Rams at week 10, he also had a pretty abysmal game that week as well.
Yeah.
So more of like a decoy than a DK out there, you know what I'm saying? So but
Nifty.
yeah, I think all of the arguments are fair, and I totally get it. But that's my guy. So
Yeah.
we briefly touched on DeAndre Hopkins, who I've got ranked number 5, and you've got ranked number 5 as well. So let's
Mhm.
move on, and I'm going to let you touch on D Hop and anything you want to put out there that we haven't touched on already.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with basically talking about this offense in Arizona. I want a lot of pieces of this offense any way I can get them. Chase Edmonds didn't make the top 24 in terms of our running back rankings, but I do like him because this offense is going to be really high scoring. I think top 5 in terms of explosive offenses next year. Kyler Murray has a unique relationship, unique connection with DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, why wouldn't you, a quarterback? This guy has been one of the most elite receivers, 99 in the club from Madden. I mean, this guy's an absolute badass. Nobody's going to question that. But the bottom line is, Kyler Murray has always just targeted him every play. He's got that Michael Thomas type of element where it's like when the play is starting, you already know where the ball's going. And I've preached it over and over again. I am obviously super about volume, but the thing that DeAndre Hopkins can give you is he can give you really good red zone efficiency too. I mean, he does have pretty good touchdowns, not like the most elite, but I'm pretty confident in him being able to go out there and just dominate week to week,
Yeah,
which I think starts separating it because when you're trying to structure out your top five, you're talking about a guy who, you know, you look at guys like maybe someone who later come up like a Keenan Allen. There's just a clear difference in raw talent as well as volume as well as upside. And I think Hopkins is right at that threshold. And the only reason DeAndre Hopkins maybe isn't like a top two, top three for me anymore is really because I think this offense is kind of been loading up at the other spots, bringing in Rondell Moore, bringing in AJ Green, bringing in James Conner. I think they're going to be trying to thin it out. So, maybe me saying that too is a weakness of DeAndre Hopkins because maybe he's not going to see that target share, And so, like, you pick DK Metcalf, right? And you know what? I mean, DK Metcalf is way more efficient with less target share. So I get that. I totally get that. But I think with Hopkins, what you're going to see is you're going to be a huge part of a very explosive, loaded offense.
yeah, I agree. And I mean, I've just got him, just a tad lower than you do.
Mhm.
Actually, no, we agree. I'm sorry, we both have
Yeah.
Hopkins at number five. But yeah, I don't view him any differently, I think, than you do. I'm a little concerned. I mean, he's threatening not to play this year, and I think uh,
Yeah.
I
That's
don't.
getting a little fishy, man. That's getting a little
It's
sketch.
a little murky, but I think realistically he'll be there week one. I think
Yeah.
they'll sort that out one way or the other. But yeah, I
Mhm.
completely agree with you. I think you can definitely argue that DeAndre Hopkins is arguably the best receiver in the league. I mean, he is
Yeah.
some of the things we've seen him do over the past couple of years with different quarterbacks is it's just outstanding.
I
And
fear God, man. I feel
yeah, I feel
God.
God,
Yo,
boy. I feel
I
God.
feel God,
Shout out
dude.
to
I would.
D'Angelo Hall. Yeah,
Oh my gosh! Shout out to his broken ankles, dude. Holy crap! Yeah, that was the most
yeah,
disgusting video I've
yeah.
ever seen.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I don't think you're going to go wrong with these first five or six guys that we've touched on whatsoever.
No.
I think if any of these, I think there's a pretty, significant drop off after these first six. And I'm including Justin Jefferson in that drop off, who we both have ranked number seven, more so because he's only played 1 year.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of an unknown factor there, but
I
no knock.
love Justin
Yeah,
Jefferson, bro.
wide receiver
I
six last
love Justin
year,
Jefferson.
he is an absolute beast. Came out and had one of the best rookie performances we've seen in quite some time by a receiver. And I had him in not our league, but a separate league last year, and he was like one of the reasons I could stay relevant in that league. What and I like I said, wide receiver six last year, and on a lot of boards this year, he's ranked right around receiver six or seven. And
Mhm.
yeah, I looked for him to have a better year than last year overall, and I look for Adam Thielen to take a little bit of a step back. But
Yeah, I think we both agree on that for sure.
the thing you want to see right out of Justin Jefferson, 125 targets, 88 receptions last year. So you'd like to see an increase there. 1,400 receiving yards. They're going to be happy if he has 1,300 plus this year.
Yeah.
But then the 7 touchdowns, yeah, we would love to see that get to double digits. And I think if those things increase, which they certainly have the ability to do so, and I mean, say what you want about Kirk Cousins, but he knows how to throw the football. I mean, he's
Yo, as much as I want to hate on him and much as I want to give him shine, he is underrated. And people got to acknowledge that when
Captain
looking at
Kirk,
fantasy.
baby.
Yeah, Captain Kirk is underrated. And man, dude, Justin Jefferson is just raw, dude. Like dating back to college, this boy is raw. And it's so hard though, because it's like you're drafting this guy this year at like absolute ceiling, like you were saying. Like he had 1,400 yards last year. You're super happy if he gets 13 because it's like, dude, like you can't just expect a receiver to come out there and repeat that kind of season.
Sure.
This year, he's projected 1,391 yards, so pretty damn close. And he's also projected 8 touchdowns receiving. So if he does that, I mean, if shit, go reach for him, go grab him. I think he is going to be a way bigger part of this offense, but I'm not too sure this Vikings offense is going to be as explosive as last year. I don't think they're going to need to score as much because this defense is going to be, I think, more improved. But it's also really hard to just bank on a guy who's coming back again and it's still got Adam Thielen over there, right? Still got Dalvin Cook, still got competition. But the thing about Justin Jefferson is he's had a full year to come and work and come in and get the reps in and get consistency with this offense. So this is a guy who, again, this is probably actually around when I'm doing my drafts, I'm actually starting to look at taking my first wide receiver. Like if I can come in and grab a guy like a Justin Jefferson or like a CeeDee Lamb, like that is actually who I feel pretty comfortable with at my wide receiver one spot. Obviously I'd love to have the guys we already talked about, but you got to make it then as a wide receiver heavy type of strategy.
Absolutely. And I think, really the last note with Justin Jefferson, the only concern that kind of I think is pushing him back a little outside of the top 5 to 6 guys in front of him being just extremely elite, right?
Yeah.
Is that Adam Thielen last year was a red zone monster, had 11 touchdowns last year.
Him and Kirk love each other, dude. In the red zone, bro.
And then Kirk Cousins has shown he likes to target a tight end in the red zone. And then outside of that, you've got Dalvin Cook on the team who's really going to eat into those red zone opportunities as well. But nonetheless, I won't be surprised if he puts up double-digit touchdowns this year. And I think certainly he's going to have a fantastic year. Yeah. So let's talk about a guy that we touched on in our last podcast last week, and that of Keenan Allen, man. Wide receiver 8 for both of us. Wide receiver 14 on average last year. I love Keenan Allen, man. I think
I love him too, dude.
Yeah. I love the beard. I love like who he is.
The beard is so sick, yo. It's just like James Harden, dude. It's just like so iconic. Like when I see Keenan, he's got the bald head, dude. He looks like he's kind of gross looking, honestly. But at the end of the day, I love it, dude. He doesn't give a damn. He just tears the defense up.
He did end up, dealing with some injuries towards the end of the year last year. Kind of fell off at the very, the most unfortunate time. But he still had some very good. He had a number 2 week 11 against the Jets. He was number 2 receiver that week against Carolina, and week 3 he was number 4 receiver last year on average. So, and then a lot of top 15 and top 20 finishes as well. So still a very consistent receiver last year outside of kind of that stretch towards the end. But I think we kind of touched on this on our, AFC West podcast already. This pick and any pick concerning the Chargers comes down to your conviction in their respective offense. And if you think that this offense, like many do, is going to take off this year, then Keenan Allen should be your top target because he is the top guy at the receiver position in that offense. So I think he's going to have a great year, but I don't see him having like a breakout year or anything, really over the top in comparison to what he's done over the past couple of years.
Because he's been so lethal anyways.
Sure. I mean, he's always been that like the last couple of years, like 6 to 8 touchdown type guy, and then around, somewhere between 1,000, 1,200 receiving yards. Right. So those are great numbers though. It's no knock whatsoever. And I think he's going to finish around that same standpoint, even with Justin Herbert in that Chargers offense looking to take off completely. So, but I'll let you get anything you want to get in. Yeah.
So first I'm going to touch on your point that you talked about. Like do you believe in the Chargers offense? I think we both do. I think a large part of the fantasy community does. Do you see Justin Herbert having a great season? Shit, I could see Justin Herbert throwing for close to 40 touchdowns and 4,000 yards. So then you start extrapolating that out, and it's like, where's that going to go, right? Obviously, Austin Eckler is going to eat a little bit, but dude, honestly, the numbers really kind of lie in Keenan Allen historically. So you got to expect Keenan Allen, if he's healthy, is going to be seeing good yards. Right now, his projections are like 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. I'd be happy with that. But if Justin Herbert really does hit the ceiling and he stays healthy, it could be higher. And that's the thing. Like you're saying, it might not hit that breakout, but I don't think Keenan Allen's really ever had a quarterback kind of like him, to be honest. And I think that's what's going to unlock him. And the only other player Justin Herbert can rely on is Mike Williams, which is Mr. Unreliable. So it's really just eliminating all other options in terms of where the damn ball is going to go. And
Sure.
Keenan Allen has absolute elite route running ability, elite catching ability. That's what you want in the red zone. So I'm super high on Keenan Allen. There's obviously limitations about pushing him much higher because, those guys are so damn good. But this is a guy who you can really build the whole backbone, the whole framework of your receiving group and your running back group, to be honest.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you touched
Yeah.
on it perfectly as well. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, go check out our podcast from last week if you want more notes.
Yeah. We really dove deep on Keenan Allen and that.
No reason to
Yeah.
keep going. Yeah, we went so deep into it last week. But so
Yeah.
my number 9 ranked receiver is your number 10 ranked receiver. And then, yeah, so we'll go ahead and
Allen
reveal both
Robinson.
those
Yeah.
guys. Yeah, I've got Allen Robinson sitting number 9. You got him ranked number 10. And then your number 9 is Terry McLaurin, who I've got ranked number 10 overall. But let's
Yeah.
touch on Allen Robinson first. Really, someone over the last 2 years just seems to always go under the radar. In that Chicago Bears offense is probably the reason why, right? But his
Mitchell
first
Trubisky's the reason why, man. That dude is so disgusting, just so gross, so gross.
Yeah,
that's the reason the Bills aren't going to
Hey.
win Super Bowl this year, just because Mitch is there, dude.
hey, he looked pretty good.
Oh my
yesterday in
gosh,
preseason
stop,
action.
dude, stop it. He did, but whatever.
Against the Bears too, which is interesting, right?
Yeah,
But,
he got his revenge in the preseason.
Yeah, there you go, man. So, I mean, last 2 years, right? 2 years ago, over 1,100 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. Last year, just under 1,300 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. So, very good numbers overall,
Yeah.
right? And I've just, he's had better finishes than Terry McLaurin. I mean, I actually view both these guys very similar overall as receivers, but I'm just a little bit more confident in going out and selecting Allen Robinson. And I think
Mhm.
he has a better opportunity to get more targets throughout the season. But nonetheless, like I don't really have an argument against Terry McLaurin either. But yeah, I think
You can't, bro. You
Allen
can't.
Robinson's gonna have a good year overall, and I would expect for him to put up similar numbers to what he's done the last 2 years, whether it's Andy Dalton or Justin Fields
Mhm.
playing the quarterback position.
Shit, he was a beast back in Jacksonville.
Yeah, don't forget those days. I mean,
He's always been locked up with a bad quarterback, dude.
sure. And yeah, I will certainly never forget the year I went out his last year in Jacksonville. I went out and drafted him. It seemed like every player I drafted that year got injured, and
Yeah, I remember that actually. You
Adrian
were devastated,
Peterson,
dude.
uh,
Yeah.
Brandon Marshall, Des Bryant. It was just a mess, as well as Allen
It's kind of
Robinson.
funny, not to get on a tangent here, but it is kind of funny to look back and talk about like old fantasy names, like people like Brandon Marshall, and just like, be
Hey,
like, wow, that guy actually was
Marsh.
like really fantasy relevant. Yeah.
B. Marsh is
It's
like still my favorite player. He's one of my favorite players of all time.
it's pretty funny. But
Yeah,
honestly, getting into a guy like Allen Robinson, similar to Keenan Allen actually a lot. I think there's a little bit of differences when I model out Terry McLaurin, but Allen Robinson, Keenan Allen, they're very consistent in the fact that they put up around the same numbers every year. They're always going to catch a ton of passes. They're volume hogs. And I see Allen Robinson as just being some durable dude who, I mean, obviously he got injured for you, but that's you. But the thing is Allen Robinson is also going to see a ton of touchdowns. And while I have identified, Darnell Mooney as an emergent player coming out of the offense next year, I just don't think that that's going to really affect Allen Robinson. If anything, I think it might open it up a little bit.
sure.
Now, the thing to think about with this team and with Allen Robinson in particular is when we were breaking down the NFC North, we did see that the schedule is going to be pretty tough, right? When does Justin Fields get his turn? He's looked pretty good in preseason, I'll say this, but I think Andy Dalton might be there for a few games, and which is still a step up though from Mitchell Trubisky. So, just like kind of with a lot of these guys in the top 10, it's like, are you buying that offense? Are you buying that quarterback? So let me ask you this. Like you put Allen Robinson above him. Haven't you seen this? Because at least I have seen this. I feel like Allen Robinson, because he's on this Bears offense, has been sliding a bit. Like you can get him later than maybe some other guys, which I love. I love that he's a little bit undervalued, but you don't need to reach for this guy necessarily.
No, like I said, he always seems to fly under the radar. I mean, he was wide
Yeah,
receiver 12 on average last year, and you're certainly right that people year after year just pass on him because he is a part of that Bears offense, and not. I mean, if he
yep,
was on any of the other teams we just talked about, he would be much well, maybe not much higher, but probably at least considered above some of the guys we just went over, right? Who some of them
yeah.
aren't even on the best offenses out there, right?
Like
So
if you flip flopped him and Keenan Allen, I would take him. Like that, I do think he is a better receiver.
sure,
And that's what sucks, man. That's just part of it. That's just part of the league. That's a part of playing
yeah.
receiver is so much of your value is based on other guys.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to hand it to you to break down your guy, Scary Terry.
Yeah. So we just went crazy talking about him on the NFC East video.
Yeah.
And a large part of that is because he's with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick goes crazy hammering his number one wide receiver. I don't care if it's DeVante Parker. I don't care if it's Willy Wonka. If it's the number one receiver on your team, Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to look for him every single play. That coming to Terry McLaurin, not having to deal with Dwayne Haskins, Colt McCoy, Alex Smith, like none of us, no fantasy, the expert. I don't care what your, asset name is. Like nobody knows how good this guy's ceiling is. I mean, I think he's
Sure.
going to be an absolute beast. I mean, this guy, once he touches the ball, he's gone. I mean, he has that like breakout speed, but he also, his route running is lethal. His catching is lethal. And he's also the lead locker room guy for this offense, too. I mean, everybody turns to him. Chase Young has had kind of a similar presence too, but Terry McLaurin led them through a lot of the COVID situation, a lot of the off the field issues that was going on in Washington. He's a very proven leader on this team, and a lot of respect goes his way. And I don't know. I'm so high on Terry. I identified him as being kind of my breakout receiver this year. I just think the perfect storm's coming together. They brought in Curtis Samuel. They got Demari Brown from UNC. I think those things are actually going to unlock him more than anything. But
Sure.
I'm really excited about this Washington team, and I'm really excited about Terry in particular.
Yeah, I think from a PPR standpoint, he's definitely going to have a top 10 type of year, but
Hmm.
you do get kind of worried about those touchdown numbers. You know, if you play in
Under
standard
seven,
leagues,
yeah, projected,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 4 touchdowns last year, 7 touchdowns in his rookie season. So a little bit alarming, but I still think he can certainly finish this year with around 7 to 8 touchdowns and still be targeted around 140, 150 times, still have over 1,100 receiving yards. So nonetheless, a very elite year
I
out
just don't
of,
see how he. I don't see how he does gets under 90 to 100 catches
yeah,
like he did the past two seasons. I
sure.
mean, having 58 his first year, 87 the second year, I really don't see with the acquisition of Ryan Fitzpatrick this not being a 90 plus catch season. And if he's got that, I think his numbers are just going to blow the models that are out there.
Yeah.
And we could see the touchdowns. But we also could see a season similar to maybe Stefon Diggs. Could you see
Sure.
that? Because I could see that being a perfect comparison. Because I think
Yeah.
there's play styles similar too.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that Josh Allen is a better quarterback than Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I definitely,
Yeah, yeah, maybe just a little bit.
well, I see the comparison, and I
Yeah,
would not be surprised if Terry comes out and has a kind of breakout year similar to what we saw Stephon
hmm,
Diggs do last year. So let's move right along. Let's see what we've got going with our 11th ranked player overall, and
hmm.
that of AJ Brown, who was the wide receiver number 11 on average last year. I like AJ Brown a lot, but part of what has been keeping me from drafting him, more often than not, is the fact that Julio Jones is typically
Yeah,
someone you can target pretty easily, and someone who holds great PPR value. And really, when you look at AJ Brown, I mean, 106 targets last year, 84 targets the year before, 52 targets his rookie season, 52 receptions in his rookie season, 70 receptions last year, and then just a hair over 1,000 receiving yards in both seasons. But those touchdowns is where he really makes up for it. 8 touchdowns his rookie season, 11 touchdowns last year. I am looking for those touchdown numbers to actually improve this year with the
yeah.
addition of Julio Jones, who we know historically has not been much of a red zone threat, but someone who can help, your team move the ball down the field.
That's a
So
good point.
But that's kind of the problem, right? I can certainly see the touchdowns improving, but I don't necessarily see the targets, receptions, or
Mm-mm.
receiving yards improving.
Maybe even going down,
Sure, right?
potentially going down on the targets.
Sure. So that's why he's just a little bit lower ranked and someone who I'm just not overall as high on, especially with being able to target Julio a little bit later on. And two very different receivers overall, but it's no knock on AJ Brown. I think he's going to be very productive this year. I think that offense is going to be very good, barring any injuries. So I've got
Let
him
me ask
right.
you this
Yeah.
question. I got to cut you off here because this top 12, I stand with my opinion to put him where I put him. Um, why is this guy getting as much hype as he's getting, though? I mean, this is a guy, when we first started doing mock drafts, I saw people take him over like DeVante Adams. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, I feel like
Yeah.
I'm missing something here because you look at his old numbers, then you look at the fact that this is a notoriously run offense. Then you look at the fact that it's Ryan Tannehill, who we both love, but it's like it's not like this is Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or A Rod. It's like, and then they bring in Julio. It's like I get it, you're not going to see a lot of double coverage, but
Sure.
like what is the disconnect that I'm having here?
Well,
What's your read on that?
I think it's more to do with a lot of people's overall faith in the Tennessee Titans offense as a whole. I mean, it goes back to what we talked about with a lot of these guys. And
Yeah,
there are a lot of people out there looking for the Titans to have an absolute breakout year. I mean, they've already kind of done that, right? But a lot of people looking for the Titans to be the number two, number three team in the AFC and
mm,
offensively also do that, but not just from a rushing standpoint, but from a passing standpoint as well. So, actually, with some of your same arguments, I think is what people are allowing to be part of their hype. And a lot of people believe Ryan Tannehill is going to have a better season than he has in the past. And a lot of
yeah,
people think that addition of Julio Jones is going to really open up things for that of AJ Brown. And then a lot of people think that because the run game is so good in that Tennessee Titans offense, that AJ Brown is going to benefit from that. And a lot of people think that the coordinator change as well could really benefit these
yeah.
receivers also, maybe take
I
away
do
some.
think the coordinator change. I mean, it can only be a benefit in the sense of like Arthur Smith was so run heavy. You're just hoping something changes in that realm. But
Sure.
I mean, I think the last note I have on AJ Brown is coming out of Ole Miss. I love the guy. I thought him and DK Metcalf were like so similar. I like made a Madden team just so I could play with AJ Brown, and he was amazing. And like that, I think that's the main thing driving him because he's so he gets like no targets in him. Like I've had him, I think like 2 years in fantasy football, and it's difficult because the whole game he'll be doing nothing, and then he'll catch one pass and break out for like 80
Yeah.
yards and like
Yeah.
run over five people, and it's like okay, he wound up with 18 points. So it's like
Yeah.
you know I am willing to take a player like that. And I do think he's a top 10, top 12 type of receiver. I'm not really this year digging in my claws to try to get him on my team. But
Sure.
I will say, I do think this guy falls in that top 10 and all said and done. And I'll probably look foolish with the fact that I don't have him higher, to be honest, because we have him actually pretty low in comparison to consensus. I
Sure.
mean, I think he's consensus like 6 or 7. And honestly, I get it. I mean, him and DK are kind of like the same player, to be honest. You're betting on the offense, like you were saying.
Sure. Yeah. So let's top things off for the night with that of CeeDee Lamb, who we both have ranked 12th overall. A very interesting player with a very difficult schedule, 31st
Yeah.
hardest strength of schedule for these Cowboys receivers, but a lot of receivers in that team, right? I mean, Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper are there. Zeke's going to get some targets as well. Blake Jarwin is looking like a very serviceable tight end for Dak Prescott to target as well. And so there are people out there who want Amari Cooper over CeeDee Lamb. There are people who don't want either CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper, and they want to go target Michael Gallup late, which honestly, if you're asking me, sounds like a pretty good plan, right? But when you're starting to break things down, you're starting to break down this Cowboys offense. I think this is the guy, right? I think this is certainly the number one guy out of, and I think he's going to benefit from Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper and Zeke all in that offense, and whether they're all getting targets or not. And I've started to watch. You talked about this in some mock drafts I filmed earlier. I've started to watch the new season of Hard Knocks, and I'm like, man, I
He's
want.
so
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, not just CeeDee Lamb. Like, I want pieces of that Dallas Cowboys offense
it
on my
looks
fantasy
good.
roster, but CeeDee Lamb especially. I mean, like outside of Zeke with like a body transformation, outside of Dak like coming back just wanting to fuck the entire league,
Yeah,
right? Uh, CeeDee Lamb looks to be a very elite receiver this year, and I
he's got
think,
superstar written all
yeah,
over him, dude. Just
absolutely.
superstar.
And
X,
not
like, I mean, gosh, I just get excited just talking about this dude, man. I can't wait to see him play next year.
And like he didn't even have that great of a year last year. I mean, wide receiver 20 on average. I mean, didn't have a bad year by any means, and he had a
No.
lot of bad quarterback play as well. I mean, your boy Januski was his main quarterback, and Andy Dalton sprinkled in there. Dak going down relatively early in the season, right? But even with all that, he still had 74 receptions, 935 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns off 111 targets. So, what more can you really ask from a receiver when you already have Amari Cooper in the building, Zeke in the building, as well as Michael Gallup, and then you've got Januk throwing, throwing.
Newski, yeah,
Yeah, I don't really.
yeah.
I just call him
I
whatever.
don't, I just know he's the JMU stud, dog.
Yeah,
That's all I know, man.
he's still on the team. And side
I
note,
know.
he's really
He might
funny.
play, man. Who knows with
Yeah,
Dak Prescott,
yeah,
dude?
yeah, he's pretty funny in that HBO Hard Knocks. There's some stuff with him in there, but yeah, I mean, he had some pretty bad finishes last year, like week 12, week 13, week 14, week 17, even earlier in the season, week 7 and week 8. I mean, he had some pretty poor performances, but once again, it's more tied to the quarterback play, and then some of the earlier, performances that weren't that great, more tied to him being a rookie and being used to the offense, right? So I think the right way to label CeeDee Lamb is definitely a big potential for a breakout season. And like
Yeah.
you said, he's got superstar written all over him. So I'm confident with him at, ranked number 12. I view him pretty similar to how I view my 13th ranked player, but we'll save that for our next, breakdown episode here. But yeah, I'll let you touch on CeeDee Lamb to close the night out as well.
Yeah, no, I think there's two scenarios here that are kind of to leave you optimistic about CeeDee Lamb. For the starter, you said he didn't have like the greatest year, but I think there was a lot of correlation with him and Justin Jefferson. I thought that they were so similar type of players too, and I just thought the difference was is that Justin Jefferson was in so much of a better situation. Whenever CeeDee Lamb was tagged and was able to play with Dak Prescott, he was great. Also, when Andy Dalton was able to play well, CeeDee Lamb performed well. Like it was really just like when he was like, who else would have thrived in that situation? Which I don't think. I think you would agree with that. But going a step further too is it's like the picture is starting to roll out quicker and quicker that Amari Cooper might not be there as much as like people are saying because he is not looking very healthy. I
Yeah,
mean, he's been injured all preseason. Now, apparently, he's going to be there for he's going to come in, play some preseason action. He'll be there week 1. But if you've watched Amari Cooper throughout his career, he's had a really hard time trying to stay healthy. And so if you could see CeeDee Lamb with his target share go up even higher, I don't know how good this guy could be. And it's a very similar narrative to like how I just described Terry McLaurin,
yeah,
except I think this offense is going to be so much better than Washington
yeah.
football teams. And he's going to get those opportunities, those games where he plays against Philadelphia, he plays against the Giants, where it just might be a fucking torch fest, where he might just be
Yeah,
touchdown
it's a
after
great point.
touchdown.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you look at those kind of things. If you watched his college tape, I mean, I'd love to have been back at Oklahoma, but this is a guy who has that kind of X factor elite type of skill set. His projections, I mean, he's projected around 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns. I see him beating that number. I just see him beating that number. And I don't think Amari Cooper being good takes away from CeeDee Lamb, to be honest. I think this is a offense that can definitely support 2 players in the top 18
sure.
ranking wise.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
and don't sleep on Michael Gallup. I mean, that's my guy too.
I'm
So
not sleeping on
yeah,
him. He ain't top 24. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but he ain't. I don't think he's in either of our top 24s.
he's not, but
He's
great
great
stuff.
value though. Great
Great
value
value.
late.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I just traded
absolutely.
for him in Madden actually.
Well, there you go.
I
If he's
just
on,
snagged him.
if he's on Steven's Madden team, he's for real.
Man. That's
Yeah.
when you know it's for real. When you poke him in there.
So there you have it. That is our top 12 wide receivers for the upcoming 2021 football season. That was a
Mhm.
blast, man. As always, a lot of good talent we just went over, but a lot of good talent left for 13 through 24 for our next episode
Mhm.
for these wide receiver rankings as well. I mean, wide receivers get dicey. There's a lot of depth. So, don't just look at these top 12 guys. I mean, there's a lot of value at the position in terms of fantasy as well. So, as always, we thank you all very much for watching and or listening. If you did find this enjoyable, helpful, or entertaining, go ahead and smash that like button. You already know what to do, man. And of course, just go ahead and subscribe. I mean, 94% of our viewers right now are not subscribed. What are you waiting for? You need a little Steven in your life. You need the catch in your daily life, baby. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We'll even take a second. Okay, we gave you time. Go ahead and sub. Go ahead and drop some comments down below. Let us know who your top targets at the receiver position are this coming year, and anticipate
Yeah.
numbers 13 through 24 coming up pretty shortly within the week as well from us. And like I said, we thank you all very much for watching or listening. Steven, any final thoughts on the night?
Oh, so we coming into this video, we knew 1 to 12 was going to be fun, but 13 to 24 is just crazy, man. I mean, 13 to 24, there's going to be people that are top notch elite players that are left off the list, and 13 to 24, it's a war zone. I see a lot of debates happening between John and I. I see a lot of people that are like, I've been doing my rankings. I've been staying up late trying to figure them out because it's like everybody's neck and neck. So it's going to be a fun one. I'm pretty pumped for it. But yeah, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. We have been seeing so much support from you. We love it. But, we just want to keep pumping out more and more content. Please give us feedback, too, on kind of that top 12 about guys like A.J. Brown, too. I mean, obviously, there's some disconnect from me, but I'd be interested to see what y'all think about the situation, about the hype around A.J. But other than that, man, we just love you guys. We love you, Catch fam. Just keep out there. Keep supporting.
Yeah.
Catch fam. Yeah, keep supporting, guys.
So you don't have Marquise Brown in your top 12?
No, actually, I was gonna wait. I was waiting for you to see if you would recognize the jersey. Yeah. No.
So yes,
I'm pretty close to burning this jersey, to be honest.
Stay tuned. Stephen may have Marquise Brown in his rankings 13 through 24. As always, we thank you very, very much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.